am very excited that we've got Lauren Glenn. She did a podcast with me, which I'm working to get out, and it was amazing. And I knew that I wanted to absolutely get her to come speak to this group. I know that this is super valuable, and oftentimes we're really good at doing annual planning in some areas, and some areas not so much. So I was really excited when she agreed to speak with you guys. So, Lauren, go ahead and take it from here. Let us know who you are, who you serve. Make sure everyone downloads the link. I'll keep putting it in there as new people join, to make sure that we can get the best experience today. Thanks.
Yes. Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry you're not feeling very well. I understand the misery.
So bad.
So, my name is Lauren Glynn. I am a time management and productivity expert. I say that word jokingly because I still struggle with time management and productivity, even though I help other people. So, I just want you to know that it is a totally normal thing to struggle with that, especially as business owners, where we have so many demands on our time that we really want to make sure that we're spending our time on the right things in our business and not all of those other distractions that come along with owning a business. So I have been in the online space for so many years, and I actually started as a Pinterest consultant. So it's sort of coming full circle for me today, talking to you all. I was never very good at it. I will be totally honest with you. So, not my area of expertise. However, I did find my métier with time management and productivity. And I want this to be interactive today. I want you all to ask questions. I want you all to feel like you can participate. I'm going to be putting some prompts in the chat for you all to be answering so that we can kind of learn together as we go today. So, let's get started. So, my whole focus for business owners is to help you get out of the weeds of your business, stop being that bottleneck that stops you from attaining all of those goals and things that you want to succeed at in your business, and actually get to that point of being sort of the CEO of your business, of being able to make those strategic decisions and actually focus on the growth of your business and not just sort of the daily nitty gritty. Obviously, you do have to do the daily nitty gritty sometimes, but actually making that time to have that strategy in place as well is so important as a business owner. So, we're going to talk about my custom break framework today of how you can stop being your bottleneck in your business so that you can make space for that strategic growth. And you can stop watching your best ideas and profit slip away because you're doing everything except for the work that actually builds your business. That if that's what you want, then you are in the right place. After the session today, you will be able to map your 2026 goals with quarterly milestones, figure out exactly what's blocking you from achieving those goals, figure out where your energy should actually be focused as opposed to maybe where it's going now, and plan that one big change that will help your business run strategically in 2026. And if you haven't already, there is a link in the chat to download this whole presentation, including all of the places that you'll be filling out your own information. And we're not going to complete this whole thing today because it's actually very comprehensive. So make sure that you download it so that even if you're not kind of following along today, you can come back to it and start filling it out and preparing for next year. So some ground rules today. I always like to level set for everybody. We're not here to shame. We're not here to guilt. We all have different ways of managing time. We all have different ways that our brains work. And I want you to understand that you are not behind because you don't do something the way that everyone else says you should do something. If you don't time block, if you don't color code your calendar in a pretty way, you are not behind. Your brain just works in a different way. And my brain does too. I've tried all of the things, trust me. So we're going to be talking about more foundationally how you can make space for your goals as opposed to this is the only way that you can do it and this is the only way that will work. Also, this is interactive. I thrive on other people's energy. That makes me sound like an energy vampire, but I'm not actually a vampire. I just really love interacting with people. I love hearing sort of from you and what you're experiencing and being able to help you live. That really lights me up inside. It's why I became a coach. So I want to hear from you, whether it's in the chat, whether you unmute when we have discussion time, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And finally, we're
And
not
let
chasing. Oh, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Let me pause for
No.
a second. So at the beginning, when you put the link in, I signed up for it and I haven't gotten an email yet. And I looked in spam. So does it take a little bit of time? Stephanie, did you get yours? Emily, Jenna, Tony, did you guys get yours in your email yet from signing up for it?
I have
Not
not.
yet.
Okay. Okay. So I didn't know, Lauren, how much time it takes, but I don't want to have people miss something.
Yeah, yeah. No, I tested it right before this and mine came right through. So
Oh,
that's
actually, mine did just come through.
It did. Okay, perfect. I
Yeah,
just
so
wanted to
I
make
did
sure
it
that
as soon
it's
as she had dropped the link in. So that was a couple minutes ago.
perfect.
yes. Okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I just
Thanks
didn't
for
want
double
everyone
checking. No,
wondering
I
halfway
appreciate
through.
it. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm still waiting though. So
That's okay. We'll wait. We'll wait for it. I just want to make sure someone gets it.
Yeah, there's no interactive parts until a little bit later, so you have a few minutes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank
well,
you.
Um, okay, so and then finally, we're not chasing perfection, right? Nobody here is perfect. I will be the first to admit that I am not perfect. We are just here to create a plan that you can work from and a plan that adjusts with what you need and how you think and work. Boring stuff. Keep yourself muted unless called upon. You don't have to be called upon, but if it's obviously a discussion section, then feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you have a question, you can throw that in the chat. I am monitoring the chat. I'm very good at multitasking, so I can see the chat while I'm presenting. So if you have questions, I may not answer it right away, but maybe once I pause, I'll come back to it. And then if you see a green section in this presentation, that's sort of a prompt for the chat. So go ahead and head over there and engage over there. So, our agenda at a glance. Why you can't seem to achieve your goals. Why do they keep slipping by you? It happens to all of us where we have the best intentions, we set our goals, and then life happens because it happens. I mean, poor Jen is sick today. Life happens, and things just fall by the wayside. So, the question is, how do we react to that? How do we actually respond when things don't quite go to plan and we have to make a new plan? We'll walk through your full send strategy for how you actually accomplish these things and make it happen. We'll see it in action. You'll create your own. You'll also see an example. And then we'll wrap up and we'll talk about the next steps from here. Any questions before I move on? Okay. First, who is Lauren Glynn? I didn't give myself a whole big intro at the beginning, but I'm a bookworm, a world traveler. I actually just booked a cruise to Asia for 2027, which I'm very excited about. I also love mountain drives, and I am now a strategic advisor for business owners ready to lead and not just run their business. If they're ready to stop being that bottleneck in their business and stopping it from succeeding the way they know that it can. I've helped everyone from solo founders to major organizations. I've worked for Apple and Whole Foods, and I have helped everyone sort of stop doing it all and start thinking like CEOs. I work with brilliant women and non-binary leaders who are ready to step out of the startup hustle. So if you are ready to sort of get to that next level, that's what I help with. If you're done being the entire team, let's build your CEO era together. First, what are we talking about here? What are the problems that we're actually facing? So if you could head to the chat, drop your first name and one word that, I guess you don't need your first name because you're already labeled there, but one word and how your business feels right now when someone asked you to take on just one more thing. If I came to you and I said, could you take on this client before the end of the year, how would that feel right now in your business? I'll give you a couple seconds to respond. Busy but doable. Okay. All right. Not overwhelming. That's good. Overwhelmed. All right. There's the overwhelmed. Stephanie would be overwhelmed. Tony would be overwhelmed. Yep. Yep. Jenna would be overwhelmed. We're seeing a lot of trend here. Jen, you're the only one who wouldn't be overwhelmed, I guess. So taking on one more thing would be overwhelming for you right now. That is a clear sign that something needs to change, I think, in your business. And if you have your video on, show your hand how many of you set goals for your business that you never actually hit because you were too busy doing other things and you maybe didn't go back to them. Yep, everybody that I can see is showing their hands. Yep, yep. So what's wild is that could be a $50,000 mistake in your business because every time you try to add a goal without considering how much time and capacity you actually have, You're either delivering subpar work that could damage your future reputation and potential referrals. You're burning yourself out so badly that you actually stop showing up as well as you want to for your best clients. Or you're creating a business that can't scale past your personal capacity, your personal breaking point. And with those limitations, you're really preventing your business from becoming what it could potentially be. For you all, this could look like taking on more clients when you're already maxed out. It's the overwhelmed feeling, launching a new service before systematizing your current ones, saying yes to every maybe collaboration or presentation opportunity without considering if you actually have the time to do it, adding more content creation to an already packed plate, or promising turnaround times that you can't actually meet. By the end of this training, you will never make this mistake again. So why working smarter is the advice of just working smarter is killing your business. Whether you're brand new or you've been doing this for years, the problem is the same. You're trying to add to an already full plate, right? We just saw how overwhelmed everyone was, how many people did not meet their 2025 goals because they were too busy. You maybe want to book more clients, but you're spending all your time figuring out your systems, responding to inquiries. You're not really focusing on that client attracting work. Or if you're established, you want to scale, maybe launch some new offers, or raise prices, or take time off, but you're still doing everything yourself, so there's no room for anything else. The trap is the same. Either way, you think you need better time management, but what you actually need to do is clear the path first. And what does that mean by clear? What do I mean by clear the path? Well, let's talk about my client, Denise. She was a nutritionist. She still is a nutritionist. She's a keto nutritionist, actually. And she has a small team of other nutritionists that work with her. And she also had a part-time assistant. And she really wanted to launch a membership. She knew that she could reach more people if she could just launch this membership because she was maxed out on client hours, but she knew that she wanted to help more people. And so her reality was spending every night on admin or charting after her client sessions. And she ended up being the bottleneck in every process with all of her clients. And with her nutritionist, a lot of things they couldn't do without asking her questions. Her admin didn't really have the authority to do a lot of things within her business. She was still sort of holding everything up from everyone else. She was also saying yes to a lot of speaking gigs while she was already, maxed out on all of these other things that she was doing. And she thought she needed better time management. She thought she just needed to work harder, work longer, make sure that she was spending her time wisely. But really, she needed to stop acting like an employee in her own business. And for you all, just to kind of bring it back, it might look like doing all the client pin design yourself instead of templating it or delegating it, manually scheduling pins instead of using batching, responding to every DM immediately instead of having boundaries. That is one thing that I talk about a lot with business owners, is having boundaries. We are very bad at that as women sometimes. You're constantly focusing on learning new features or tools, but you're not actually taking that time to implement them, to actually try it, to see how it works, if it works in your business. And you're always in that delivery mode and never really taking that step back to be in that strategic mode. And so that makes you fall into the capacity trap. You don't know what you realistically have going on at any moment. You think because you're busy, you're actually being productive, which they are not the same thing. You say yes based on fear because you're afraid of missing out on an opportunity. You're afraid of passing up on something and then they'll never ask you again. Instead of actually stopping to consider, does this fit into my overall strategy of my business? And you're building a business that can't run without you. And as entrepreneurs, we deep down never want to think that our businesses can run without us, because we want to be that person. We started businesses because we love the work that we're doing. We want to be self-employed. And so we never want to think that we are not needed, but there's a balance between not being needed and being the bottleneck in everything. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more. And so you're creating amazing services, but if you're not delivering them or not delivering them well because you're overcommitted, then those services become liabilities instead of assets. So we're going to talk about the full send strategy, which is a strategy you can use to actually overcome all of these things. And it's built on my break framework. And so that's the foundation of how I work with all of my clients. It's helping you move from doing everything to that strategic leadership like we talked about. So we start with B, which is baseline, which is understand where your time is actually being spent right now, Record, document all of your processes so they're not living in your head, even if that just means doing sort of a Loom recording so that you can then use the transcription to then write out an SOP. Whatever that looks like, that low lift documentation looks like for you, that's fine, but it has to be documented. Then we do evaluate. We analyze what's working and what actually needs to change, because once we have that clear picture of where your time is going and how everything works, then it's a lot easier to evaluate where it should be going and where we should be making changes. And then we adjust. We design new systems, as your systems evolve, as you learn how you like to work, or as you use the system, you learn that, oh, maybe this thing that I thought that was going to work is not actually working. So we adjust, we make changes. We always are learning and evolving. And then finally, we keep practicing. Like I said, we refine as we go. It's not a one and done. So today we're focusing on the evaluate and adjust steps of the strategy. So you're not going to get the full picture today because we only have an hour, but you will be figuring out what's blocking your goals and what needs to come off your plate. And so finally, ta-da, let's meet your full send strategy. So the full send strategy isn't about managing your time better. It's more about designing a business that operates within what you actually have time to do, not what you think you have time to do. Because you think you have 40 hours in a week, but do you really have 40 hours in a week? I don't believe that. So we're going to talk through the 4 moves. The first one is to pick your play. And Jen said that hit hard. Yes, I know. So the first one is to pick your play. So we're not setting your goals today. What we're actually going to be doing is working with how you make your goal happen. So choose one of your 2026 goals today that we're going to work with. It can be sort of a nebulous one. It doesn't have to be super specific, just sort of something that you're thinking about, just to get in the practice of sort of breaking it down. And then move number 2 is going to be check your bench. We're going to map what's filling your plate now, which is, remember that evaluate, that record step. We're going to be looking at everything that's actually going on right now. We're going to figure out what your true available capacity actually is after we understand where all your time is going. And Emily says, I know I don't have 40 hours a week and I don't have that energy either. Yes, same. I'm right there with you. I do not have the energy for 40 hours. There's a reason I'm self-employed. And then we're going to see the gap between what you have and what you actually need. And then we're going to find the glitches, identify what's actually draining you, what's blocking you from your goal, and what's actually malfunctioning in the system that you have currently. And then we're going to make cuts, right? One of the biggest lessons that my clients have to learn is how to stop doing things, how to cut things out of their lives, because that is a really hard thing to do in your business. It's hard to say, this is no longer serving me and I'm not going to do it anymore. I actually don't do Instagram anymore because it wasn't serving me. I wasn't getting clients from it. I wasn't getting reach from it. It was just very frustrating for me. I am not someone who can just turn it on and record a reel like with no preparation or anything. So there was a lot of anxiety involved in it. It just wasn't for me. So I cut Instagram out of my life. I focus now on Threads almost entirely, Threads and LinkedIn. And so today you are going to be deciding what comes off your plate so that you can make space for your 2026 goal, because that is the step that most people miss, is they think they can just add in these goals of, I'm just going to do this, 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 and this, but they never think about, well, what am I taking away to make space to actually achieve this goal? So back to Denise, who wanted to start her membership. She realized that she was spending 60% of her energy on tasks that could have been done by her admin at $20 an hour instead of, spending her time on $200 an hour opportunities. And she was, burnt out by the time she actually was facing those options. So 6 weeks after we started working together, she launched her membership and she was able to work fewer hours and cut her charting time, which is when she takes, writes down all the notes about her clients, by 50%. Okay, so if you haven't grabbed the link already, please do so in the chat. Jen, if you want to throw that in there one more time in case there's anybody who missed it, we're going to go through this together. So thank you. I want you to go to this section if you haven't already, and we're going to start talking through how we're going to build out our full send strategy. So you're going to choose one 2026 goal to work with today. It doesn't have to be the big goal, the biggest thing you're going to do, but just something that you do want to achieve in 2026. So here are some examples. Book 5 new clients, launch a maintenance package for past clients, retainer, whatever you want to call it. Take a full week off without the business falling apart without you there. Raise your prices by 20%, or hire your first assistant. Those are just some examples. Obviously, you can pick whatever goal is important to you. And let me know in the chat what your goals are. And don't worry about the quarterly milestones yet. We'll talk through that in a second. Send 5 podcast pitches out each month and book 3 of them a month. All right, that's a great goal, Jen. Are those to be guests on podcasts? No.
No, these are for me going. I am a speaker on podcasts. I have a whole list, but I have done nothing with that for the last 6 to 7 months. So going into 2026, this is one of my big goals.
Oh, so it is to be a guest on other people's podcasts.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, that's a great goal. Anybody else want to share that? And also, you don't have to, right? If it's very personal, you don't have to share your goal. Send monthly emails and post more on Pinterest. All right, good goals for Pinterest strategists. Jed is very excited for you. Okay, so now that we have our 2026 goals, you can still sort of ruminate on them. Like I said, you're going to keep this template, work from it. You know, it's yours to keep, obviously. So now that you have your one specific measurable goal, how are you going to break this down quarterly? So if your goal is send monthly emails, then what is your goal within each quarter? Are you going to ramp up to sending monthly goals? Like maybe you send one email in the first quarter and then you ramp up to like 2 months. You know, I don't know what your capacity is. So, you know, how are you going to map that out throughout the whole year? Or is it just steady, right? Q1 sent one email a month. Q2 sent 1 email a month. Like that could be it too. It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to escalate. It could be something very steady that you're just doing. And then I want you to think about why this goal matters to you. Why are you doing this goal? Because a lot of times we think through the goals themselves, we don't think through the why. And I have a lot of philosophies around goals between outcome and output goals. They're very different things, which we don't have time to get into today. But I want you to think through why you're doing this goal. What is sending a monthly email going to achieve for you in your business? What is sort of that castle in the sky, big goal, big dream that you have that is working you towards? And same with posting more on Pinterest. If you don't understand, if you don't think through why you're doing these things, then you're much more likely to sort of let it fall off and let it not be a priority because you haven't thought through the value that it's providing to you and your business. And you want to make sure that you have that reasoning behind it, because that is what will motivate you when it gets hard. That is what will motivate you when a million other things are pulling you in a different direction. And so having that why sort of in your back pocket will really help keep you on track. And yes, Emily, I was going to address that. So Emily said she doesn't know what her goals are yet, and she thinks that is bad. And that is not bad, right? It's only December 19th. I have been known to also think of my yearly goals in January. Like there's no, you're your own person, you're your own business owner. There is no law that says you have to have annual goals. And I will be totally honest with you, I set quarterly goals. I don't set annual goals because my business changes frequently. My life changes frequently. I'm a digital nomad. I'm living in different places and moving around a lot, and I travel. So for me, annual goals actually don't work. I focus more on quarterly goals. So everyone's brain is different, and Jen says me too, and then she gets bored as well. Yes, exactly. Like I had to do this thing for a whole year. So I actually set quarterly goals. But if you'd rather have the longer term goal, then you can set annual goals. It's just whatever works better for you and your brain and your lifestyle. So do not feel bad if you don't have your goals yet. You just have to sit and kind of think through what is important to you and what you want to do for next year. Maybe it's doing less of something. That could be a goal too. Maybe you want to do less manual work and more automation. Maybe that's your goal, something like that. It doesn't have to be this great big thing. Okay, so now that we kind of have an idea of what our goals are for 2026, I want you to check your bench. This is going to be you mapping where your time is going right now. So not the ideal scenario of, oh, ideally I would spend an hour a week on Instagram, and but the reality is you're spending 4 or 5 hours a week on Instagram. I want to know the real nitty gritty. I want to know the dirty laundry that you have of where your time is actually going. And you may not be able to fill this all the way out in the few minutes that we have here, but I want you to start really paying attention to where your time is going as a business owner, because where your time is going shows you what you value in your business and your attention and your energy. And if your time and attention and energy is going to things that aren't moving your business forward, then you are showing that you don't value that strategy, that bigger piece of what is going to move your business forward. So I want you to be brutally honest with yourself here. You do not have to share, but you can if you want to, about where your time is going. So just take a minute to kind of think through what is going on for you right now in your business. You don't have to worry about the do versus delegate yet, but I want you to think through what's on your plate, business and personal, right? Because most of us, I'm guessing, are solopreneurs or have a very small team. So your business and your personal is all pretty much one thing at this point. How much energy does it take you? So one, it's a very low energy thing. It's not something that really you have to focus on. It's not something you have to like hype yourself up for. Versus a 5 would be something like giving this presentation. It would be a high energy thing, and I have to really focus on it, and and I have to prep for it and things like that. And then how many hours per week are you spending doing these things? If it's something you don't do very often, then sort of average it out about how much you think it would be, so that you can get an idea of realistically where your time is going. And so I'm going to give you a minute or two to fill that out. Again, you're probably not going to be able to list everything right now because we only have a few minutes, but at least sort of start getting the wheels turning. And then Jen says, a lot of my time is going to admin work instead of client work. Even though you have 2 people that can help, so you need to map out who's going to do what to give time back. That's exactly what this is for. You have your do versus delegate, you have your energy levels, and you can decide sort of, this is what's important to me versus this isn't what's important to me. And this is actually a smaller version of my larger Hell Yes Hard Pass task sorter, Jen, that you might be interested in, which I think I've talked about on your podcast. So if you haven't already, I would take a look at that, especially because it has categories like, I would rather get a root canal than do this thing ever again. And that's exactly what I had to work on with Denise too. She was doing a lot of these presentations, but she was like creating the slide decks herself and like going in and organizing everything and managing everything. And I was like, you have an admin, like have her create, give her an outline, have her create the basic skeleton, and then you can go in and add in your pizzazz, and then she can make it pretty. It doesn't have to be all one person, or just because you have help doesn't mean that it doesn't have your flair and your expertise in it. It's choosing which pieces of the pie, which slices to hand off that someone else can, that doesn't require your special magic, and then adding in your special magic only to the parts that actually need you, as opposed to everything. And it can be hard to let go of those things. I understand. Especially as a solopreneur for a long time, and then suddenly having help, and you're like, I don't know that I trust this person to do these things the way that I want them to. All things that I help my clients work through. Okay, so once you have an idea of where your time is going, I want you to do the math. You're trying to fit in the total number of hours per week. So this is adding up that hours per week column. Total hours you're trying to fit into a week. And if you want to tell us, we're happy to hear it in the chat. Again, no judgment, no shame here. How many hours are you actually trying to fit in a week? And then how many hours are you actually realistically available? So, as Emily said, who has 40 hours, right? Even when you are working a full-time job, you are not really working a full-time job. You are not working 40 hours a week, assuming you're in an office job. I want to say other jobs are much more difficult than that, so I don't want to downgrade anybody else's jobs. But generally, if you're in an office job, you're probably not working 40 hours a week. So what's your realistic available time in a week? that you actually can focus on your, especially if you're part-time, right? If you're not full-time in your business, then you have a limited number of hours. So you want to make sure that they are going to the things that matter, the things that are important. Can you tell that I got my Christmas nails painted? I'm showing them off a lot today. Except I broke one, so we just won't look at that one. We'll look at them far, far away. And then do the math, right? Subtract one from the other and find the gap. How many hours are you trying to do work? And then how many hours do you actually have within the week? So Stephanie says she's trying to fit in 8 hours a week. It takes you 4 hours for email template and 4 hours for Pinterest blog schedule. Okay, so that's good to know. How many hours do you actually have available, Stephanie, in a week is the question.
Probably not as much as I think. So I'll have to kind of dwindle that down or space it out. Or like you said, shoot for 2 emails a quarter and start there.
Yeah, start there and scale up before you really dig in and like commit. And also look into automation, right? There's a lot of automations you can do for blog posting and Pinterest scheduling and things like that that can really save you a lot of time. AI might be able to save you some time as well. So definitely all things to look into. And it's very eye-opening to start to do this activity and realize like how much time you're trying to spend versus how much time you actually have. It can be jarring to see this. Jen says she only has 24 hours a week available and typically gives more. Yep, we all struggle with that. Okay, so now that we have our bench, we're going to find the glitches, right? So what we're going to be doing, I want you to identify what's draining your energy and blocking you from your 2026 goal. This is a little more woo-woo than we have been. But looking back at that list or just thinking, what tasks are eating your time that don't require your specific expertise? The example that I gave was Denise was creating her own PowerPoint presentations when she didn't need to be because she had an admin that could be doing it for her. Even if you don't have an admin yet, I want you to think through what are the things that you're doing in your business that potentially don't require you to actually do them. For example, Stephanie, you were talking about your blog posts. Obviously, you want your expertise in the writing of the blog post, but do you have to be the person that schedules it, that puts it into WordPress or Squarespace or wherever you're hosting it? Do you have to be the person that schedules all the Pinterest pins to go with it? You may be able to get a VA to do those kinds of things for you. Maybe it's not in the budget right now to do, but it's good to kind of have those things in mind of what you would hand off when you're able to do that. And then Jen says emails, and I have to give that up and hanging on for dear life for no reason. Yes, it's good that you recognize it, that it's for no reason, but I would dig deeper for you and say, why do I feel this ownership over these emails? What is it for you that makes it so hard for you to give up? What's the worst case scenario that could happen if you give them up? That's what I want you to think through. You're a control freak and want to ensure it's done properly. All right, so I go back to my other question. What's the worst that could happen if it wasn't done by you? What is the worst thing that could happen? Worst case scenario. And I can tell you, I had a VA who sent an email with the same subject line 3 times in a row. So, been there, done that. Yeah, which is dumb because everything I've outsourced ends up working out better than expected. All right, yeah, so you recognize you're hiring experts for a reason, people to help you, and they are experts in their field for a reason. I will say that VA did not last with me because I'm a business owner and I have to make those cuts. I have to make those choices and those decisions, and she was not the right fit for my business. And so I hired someone else. And that's sometimes what you have to do. Sometimes you take that risk and it doesn't always work out, but you learn from it. I have a much more clear SOP now for my VA to write emails so that it doesn't get sent with the same subject line every single time. And, it was a learning opportunity, but we learned and we grow. My business would still be stuck. I would not be sending emails if my VA wasn't doing it, right? So I'm in the interim space between my old VA and my new VA, and I'm just not sending emails. And you know what? It's okay. It's not the end of the world. It'll be okay. You're afraid of missing client requests or needs. That's understandable, but are you really giving those client requests and needs 100% when they come in because you're so overstretched? You're laughing, so I think you know what the answer to that is. Jenna, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, just said that she just split ways with a VA that was not answering invoicing questions. Yes, you have to have someone that you trust. And I understand that this is why delegation is so hard for business owners, right? Is that there are situations where it doesn't work out and mistakes happen, right? But the reality is that we are all human, and your clients and your potential clients will understand when these things happen. I never got a nasty email from someone saying, "This is the third time you've sent this subject line." Like, first off, they probably didn't notice. And second off, they understand that mistakes happen, and she had other issues too. It wasn't just the subject line. Just to be clear, I didn't fire someone over a subject line. But these things happen, and things can't be perfect all the time. And if we expect perfection, then we're just going to stay stagnant and never grow and never learn and never have new ways of doing things. And it happens, but we also have to, if you never want to make a mistake or have a mistake happen, then do it all yourself and don't grow your business. Those are your options at this point. Emily says, last year I was always in my email, and this year in 2025, you only gave 30 to 60 minutes a day. That is actually something I recommend to my clients. So that is a great move of just sort of boxing out time, specific time in a day to be in your email, because it's so easy to get distracted from what you're doing and always be in there and answering emails and going through things and have that little pop-up come up and you're like, oh, what's it? What's that? It must be more fun than what I'm doing right now. So that is a great move and something I actually highly recommend to my clients. Okay, then I also want you to list your recurring frustrations in your business. What are things that bother you day to day in your business that are really annoying for you? I am an automation nerd, and so when I find a frustration in my business, I create an automation to remove that frustration. For instance, for writing my emails, which I send every other week when I have a VA that's working, I actually have an automation that prompts me in Slack to remind me to write the email, and it gives me some suggested topics, and it gives me some client stories that might align with those suggested topics because it isn't attached to AI, and so it knows everything about my business. So it prompts me on Mondays every other week to say, hey, don't forget to write your weekly newsletter. Here's some things you could talk about. And that was a frustration in my business that I then went in and dealt with. And the next one is activities that keep me busy but don't move the needle towards my goal. Writing emails might keep you busy, but probably isn't moving you towards your goal. Unless you're making a lot of sales through your emails, which is possible. I don't usually have a lot of sales through my emails, so I don't spend a lot of time on it. But if it's worth it for you to spend a lot of time on your emails because you're making sales, because you're seeing opportunities, then that is something that you could continue doing, or scale back and maybe have a filter or something like that. One of the things that Denise added was she had her VA manage her emails, but she categorized them. So it was urgent, you have to respond, within the day, something that might be interested in. I don't remember exactly what the categories were, but she categorized it so that Denise could then spend her time only on the emails that were actually important, as opposed to every single thing that came in. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing of like your VA is all managing your emails or not managing your emails. It can be they're doing an interim filter step and I'm doing the next step. Just like with the presentations, she's creating the actual slides and I'm going in and adding in my magic and sparkle. So think through activities that you're doing in your business that don't really do a whole lot for your business in the bigger picture. For me, it was Instagram. I hated Instagram, as we all know now. I recommend the static grid. Anybody ever thinking about Instagram? Static grid is the way to go. And then finally, energy drains, right? So personal or business, what is affecting your capacity, or what might affect? Yeah, dude, yes to static grill, grid, not grill. Gave up grocery shopping, started using Instacart. That's a great way to do it. Yep. So energy drains, right? Grocery shopping is an energy drain for you. I enjoy grocery shopping. I'm one of those weirdos. For me, it was right now my parents are actually living with me because they're between houses. They just sold their house and they're in the process of buying a new house. And they actually just closed on it and they've been moving into it recently. And so for me, I'm having a lot of energy drain because I was helping them sell their house, and now I'm helping them move into their new house, and they're still living with me. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy having my parents around, but it's very different when you're almost 40 than when you're, a teenager. So that's an energy drain that I have. So think about things like that you might be having that would be affecting your capacity. And then let me know, what is your biggest energy vampire right now? Maybe it's your parents or your in-laws. Maybe it's your kids. I don't have kids, so there's a reason for that. Maybe it's being sick right before the holidays and you're expecting a bunch of family to come in and visit. Or it could be grocery shopping if you don't like grocery shopping. And then finally, make the cuts. So this is the thing that's going to come off your plate to make room for the things you really want to be doing. And this is a hard one because it's really hard to let go of things that we think are serving us even when they're really not. And when you think about what it is that you want to cut, I want you to really consider just like I asked Jen, if I stop doing this thing, what's the worst that could happen? And if you are delegating it, then that's a different story. But I want you to really consider what you can entirely cut out of your business. Like, I know I keep coming back to this, but for me, it was Instagram. And really consider also Facebook. I did start Facebook at the very beginning of my business, not anymore. Really consider, like, what's the worst thing that could happen if I stop doing this? For me, if stop doing Instagram, what's the worst that could happen? People go on Instagram and they think that I don't have an active business because I haven't been actively posting. That's the worst that could happen, I guess. But it links right to my threads, and my threads is very active. So it's unlikely that someone would go to my Instagram, see that I haven't posted in a long time, and think that I don't really have a business. So think through that when you're thinking through what are the things that you would take off your plate right now. So think through the things that you could delegate, think through the things that you can systematize or batch, and also things that you need to stop doing and things that you need to decline. If something comes into your business, somebody offers an opportunity for you, think through, like, really, does this match what I want my business to be? For instance, the opportunity to be on Jen's podcast came through. I applied. She didn't just find me out of the ether. And I really thought through, like, does this match where I want to go in my business? And it does. My whole marketing strategy is doing trainings like these. It's doing guest posting and, guest trainings and what was the word? Guest podcasting. There we go. That's the word I wanted. And so, yes, being on her podcast to all of you all who are people that I would love to work with really matched the strategy for me in my business. So that's not an opportunity that I would decline. But if someone came to me and they have like a podcast that is for people who like to do cross stitch, I have never done cross stitch. I don't know why they would be inviting me to be on their podcast, but that's not an opportunity that would make sense for me in my business. So that's something that I would decline. So things to think through. Stephanie says laundry, you need to find a service. Yes, I hate doing laundry. I'm right there with you. If there was any way for me to do a service, but have them do it exactly the way that I want them to do it, then I would do it. That's my problem with tasking out laundry. My podcast episode is publishing soon. That's wonderful. Emily says the energy drain for her at times is family. Her mom lives with her and you take care of your nephew every 2 weekends. That is very draining. My goodness, I can't imagine. I feel for you. I am very happy that my parents are only temporarily living with me. They're still here, so they're probably hearing me. Oops, I hit the button. Oops, that's the wrong one. I just hit the button on my headphones, so now I don't have my headphones going. Anyway, can you all still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm going to take the headphones off. I don't know what I did to them. Anyway, so your mother-in-law has been living with you for 15 years. I'm sorry. Hopefully you get along with her. I would imagine after 15 years you probably do. So think through all of these things, right? And now that you have filled all of this out, let's talk about your homework. And yes, you have homework from this workshop. I want you to think through your one big thing, right? So we talked briefly on what could come off your plate, but what's the big thing that you're going to take off of your plate to make space for your 2026 goal that we talked about? Based on your full send strategy, I want you to really dig into what your goal is for 2026, or Q1 2026 if you're not a person who likes to set annual goals like I am. And also, what is coming off your plate to make space for this goal? And it has to be something big. It can't be something small. If it's a big goal, it has to be a big thing that comes off, whatever that is. So I want you to think through what your big thing is and how you're going to make that happen. So Jen, for you, it might be email, handing it off to your assistant for real this time. For Stephanie, it might be laundry. What does that look like? Actually taking that off your plate. Jen, you also said Instagram. Yep, that's another one that can come off of your plate. So think through what your one big thing is. Think about I'm not Canadian. Think about the first step to make this happen. When will you make that step happen? Remember, we're thinking a few weeks ahead, so it's only 2025 now, so you have till 2026. And what might get in your way to actually make this happen? Or how will you handle this thing that gets in your way? So say there's no laundry services near you that will do laundry for you. What would you do instead if that is not an option? So that is your homework. Thank you so much today for listening to me. Let's talk through next steps. Here's what happens next, right? So you talk through your 2026 goal or your Q1 2026 goal. You've identified what's blocking it from happening, and you're starting to think through that one big thing that you're actually going to change. Now, this is where most people struggle, right? They're like, oh, I know the thing that I have to do, but actually making it happen is the hardest part. And, you can get derailed by client emergencies, inbox chaos. We have the holidays are happening, quick projects come up that eat your week and make it really hard to focus on things. And so the difference between hitting that 2026 goal and not hitting it is having the systems and accountability and support to execute when things get messy. And so that's where my program Focus and Flow comes in. So once you've identified your one big thing, what needs to come off your plate, Focus and Flow will actually help you make it happen. And I did link, the irony is, I linked my Instagram here because that's what everybody links, but you'll just see my static grid, so I recommend going to the threads. So what we do in Focus and Flow is it's a 4-week, 30-day one-on-one program where we take what you started today and we actually build it into a complete system. We go through my entire break framework instead of just little bits and pieces of it to help you actually implement the thing that you plan to do in 2026 that we talked about today. So in week 1, we're going to do that deep dive calendar audit, much deeper than we did today, so that we can actually design a weekly schedule that protects the time for your goal instead of just sort of fitting it in around everything else if you have time. In week 2, we'll set boundaries that actually stick so that you can eliminate distractions that sabotage your focus, right? Because it's really easy to get that inbox ding and say, oh, well, I'm going to go check this email and I'm going to go look at this thing and I'm just going to check threads real quick. Guilty. Or I'm just going to answer this real quick client inquiry. We really set those boundaries and figure out sort of what you need to be successful in your business so that you can actually achieve this goal that you set. And then in week 3, we'll break down your 2026 goal into those concrete quarterly milestones that we talked about. If you only set a quarterly goal instead of a annual goal, then we'll break that down into sort of more of a project plan so that you know exactly what the steps are that you need to complete to get it done. And in week 4, we'll build in that weekly reset ritual so that you really figure out sort of what's working for you, what's not working for you. You take that time to have that CEO moment every week or on a regular cadence if every week is too frequent if you're part-time. We have that regular cadence of checking in to make sure that your systems are still working for you, that your processes are still working for you, and that how you're managing your time still makes sense with what you're doing. So we build in that ritual for you to check in on yourself and make sure everything is still going the way that you need it to go. And you also get those 4 one-on-one calls like I talked about. You get Slack support in between sessions, and you get 30 days of post-program support to make sure that it actually sticks, because it's really easy to make a plan and it's really hard to stick to the plan. So I stick with you for 30 days after our program ends to make sure that it actually sticks and happens for you. So in 30 days, you'll have the systems to actually do your full send strategy, to actually go through the whole thing, not just knowing what to do, but actually having the structure to follow through and the support to make it happen. And because I appreciate you all letting me come in and talk at you for an hour today, I am offering up a bonus. If you book your vibe check, which is a discovery call, by January 7th, it just has to be on the books by January 7th, you'll get a bonus 2026 goal planning session. So we'll go much deeper than we did here. We'll actually talk through either your Q1 goals or your 2026 goals. Again, depending on how your brain works, we can do either one. You get 90 minutes with me in January to start really thinking through where you want your business to go in 2026. And we create a roadmap to actually make it happen. And then we go into our Focus and Flow program to create that full foundation for you to actually take action on it. So you get a focus planning session to set you up for success. You get that strategic clarity on what your 2026 priorities actually are. And everything is delivered with Google Meet and Notion so that you have all of that documentation and recordings and everything and notes so that you can always go back and refer to what we did together. So you can use the link in your Notion page to sign up for your vibe check, and you just have to have that vibe check by January 7th. I give you guys a little extra time because I know we're going into the holidays and things are getting crazy, so you have that first week of the year to make that happen.